we start with the query service. So query service is an analytic engine within the Adobe Experience Platform. You might already know or you have already used it. But one thing I would notice that it's not clear for some people that when you are doing the query on the query service, where you're viewing the data, where is data actually stored? So there just wants to be make it clear that with the query service, we only visualize the data which is stored into the data lake. We cannot access the data which is stored into the profile storage, which is a Cosmo DB behind the AEP applications. And it is very important for to understand to take some decisions when you use the query services. And it's also like, as you know, like query service is support SQL queries only, which is translated by the Adobe, because once we write the query service in the backend, it translate to a way, so it read the data from the file storage. So therefore, there is another layer which do these transformations, and that's why only Adobe supported SQL queries is applicable there, because sometime if you use any standard SQLs and if it gets some error, always double check is it supported by Adobe or not on their documentation. So now let's go to the next slide. So now let's look at the query service in the action. So you are see here a simple SQL query executed in the query service UI. So there our is in this sections we will be really visualizing you how and where to use this query service. So in this example, we are doing a very simple query on the profile data set, and we have selecting only the two column. For example, there are CRM ID and the email address. It is important because when you do with this example, we want to show you that when you doing scanning on the big tables, it always a best practice that utilize these for example, this pattern, it not going to be scan your all data. It scan only those field and gives you a very good result. And also so there we use a limit, because when data is very big, so when you define the limit, your query going to be give the result very quickly. And once important query service, like we discussed previously, the query service only support the SQL format supported by the Adobe. And once this is finished, in the UI part, you can visualize the result in the below part, and you can also download those results. But there are some limitations also with the query service, which is mentioned in the guardrails documentations. But for example, in day-to-day life, what we saw, when there is a more than 5 or 4, depend upon your license, sessions is activated, then the further queries will be failed, or you get some errors. And also the number of record visualized is around 1000 you can view into the query service. But if you use another external tool, because we're going to through that sections also, there you have more number of record you can view and download it. Yeah, now we have seen what query service is. Let's talk about how exactly we use this query service in our real project. I mean, like, for example, which type of use case and where it is used. So as you see, like, data is ingested into the data lake by the streaming API, which is normally, if you're ingesting the data by the streaming API, is available within a 15-minute into the data lake. And if you ingesting the data by batch, it available into your data lake as soon as when the data process, that data flow is finished. And then then the query service layer normally is utilized to validate the data. That's the most common use case that we use. Then we see is the data is ingested. Is data is ingested correctly, the number of row is ingested, and the quality of the data, and also validate the schema format. So this is very common use case that we use for the query service. The second, we also use it sometime when we're doing some analysis, for example, to aggregate the data, the number of record based upon some parameters. We can do some group by there, and it gives us some result and some indications before running your building your audience, because sometimes, as you know, like batch audience execute once a day, right? So for to take some decisions, it's good like if you have some pictures in front of you with some counts, and you can share with the marketing team so they can take a decisions without waiting the evaluations of the audience. And the other use case that we saw, this one, like when we have a AGO in the journey is running there, so there is a different activities in the journey, and these activities data is flow between these journeys, and this data is stored in the data set, and then we can analyze this data with the query service to understand how the data number of record is following there. So these are some couple of use case that we experience very useful to, and we use with the query service. So now we know query service, what what is their use case. We now talk about the data distiller. So first of all, like it's a very big question that I also saw, like why do we need a data distiller? What we cannot do with the query service? So without data distiller, we can analyze the data, but we cannot operationalize it. We cannot activate it. Yeah. So there's we cannot with the data, as you know, like with the query service, we did a select, we did the analyze the data with by group by or another selection queries. But there is a we cannot write and create a new derived data set. There is a no scheduling. But the query service is extremely powerful, but it has only limitation that is stop at the select command. And this is where the data distiller comes as a solution. So data distiller is moved from analysis like that we did to the next step where we do the transformation and activations of the data. So with the data distiller, we enrich the data, we transform the data, we build some new derived data set which can be utilized for your reporting purpose, reporting dashboard. We're going to walk through all these sections in detail in the further slides. And there are the some capabilities and which we clearly show you in these tables, how you can compare point to point. For example, query type. So in the query service is ad hoc query only that you run, but there in data distiller you can use ad hoc plus batch both queries. And in the query service, we can utilize select query, but in the data distiller, you can select, read, write everything. And the maximum runtime with the query service is 10 minutes. And if you're, that's why, like we discussed, if your query is very big, very complex, so it takes more time and it will fail. So always optimize it. But on the other side, like if you run in the data distiller, you have a more big time frame to execute the query. And there is another feature, for example, scheduling, writing the data sets, and incremental processing and dashboard and SQL insights. So these features not available in the query service, but these are available in the data distiller. So I hope this give you a very good reason or differentiations between the query service and the data distiller there. So now let me go to the next slide. Yes, you can start, Akash.
Thank you, Parvesh. So in these slides, like let's simplify with data distiller actually what does it in the real project. On the left side, we have raw data. This could be a sales event, web event data, record, or lookup data sets. Individually, these data sets are useful, but they are not activation ready, often too technical for direct marketing team usage. In the middle where the data distiller comes into play, we use SQL to transform this raw data set into something meaningful. This is where we join the profile and event data, apply the business rules, aggregate behavior, and create the flags and priorities. On the right side, we now have a derived dataset. This is a business actionable data, targeted audience, custom attributes, aggregated KPIs, and enriched customer profile. And when we profile enable this derived dataset, those attributes becomes reusable across audience, journey, and personalization. Now, let's look at how we technically build and operationalize this derived dataset inside AEP. Can we go to next slide, please?
Yes.
Yeah, let's ground everything in a practical business use case. Our objective here is very simple. Identify the customer whose gym membership are approaching expiry date and activate them through a batch campaign. But not just a generic campaign. Each customer should receive a personalized reminder message, dynamically populated with their actual membership expiry date. To achieve this, we start with our profile dataset, which is XDM individual profile class, contains the customer core information like customer ID, first name, last name, email. This dataset gives us identity and contactability. But on its own, it does not tell us anything about the membership status of customer. So next we have the event dataset, which is the XDM experience event class, capture the membership related identity or the activities. So here we have the event related attributes, that is the customer ID, membership type, membership start date, expiry date, and event data when it's renewal, when it's get cancelled, etc. And the event date when this event actually get ingested. And this is where the business logic lives. Here we can identify the upcoming expiry date, detect the cancellation, track renewals, apply time-based calculation. Now here is the challenge. The expiry date lives in the event dataset. Customer identity lives in the profile dataset. They are separate. So to create an activation ready audience, we need to join them, apply time logic, filter out cancellation, and generate reusable attributes. And this is exactly where data distiller becomes essential. In the next step, we will transform this raw dataset into the derived dataset, which will be the activation ready. So we can go to the next slide, Pravesh. Yeah, in this slide, now we move from the understanding the source data, like what are the source data that we are using here, the profile data and the event data, which will tell about the membership expiry information. So now we will build the derived data set. Here for our use case, we have derived dataset name as membership renewal target. So here you will see that create table is the key that will be used to create the table, and then the select will give all this business logic like whatever we want to do. So first we join the profile dataset here, the profile customer dataset with the membership event dataset. We connect them using the customer ID. This allows us to identify and identity and the contact information from profile and membership lifecycle information from events. Next, we apply the business logic. First, filter membership expiry date in next 7 days. So here it is in the where condition. And also we ensure that we are targeting customer who are approaching the customers and whose or we exclude the membership which is done through the event type is not equal to cancel. So this avoid the targeting the customer who have already churned out. So and then we also calculate a new attributes which is called as renewal at priority. So by using the case logic, if the membership expiry date is in between 0 to 3 days, then it's the high renewal priority. And if it is in between 4 to 7 days, then it's the medium renewal priority, or otherwise it's low. So this turn raw data value into the business decision variable. Now the business can use these custom attributes in their profile, or these custom attributes they can use to create the audience, and also they can use into the personalization to show the dynamic content, to show the direct the value or your derived data to uh, the personalized message to the customer. So finally, when we run this query, you will get the, or we will see here, like we get the created table data set ID, which is the which tell us like this query is success, and now we can do the validation part in the next slide. Yeah. So in the last slide, we have created our derived data set, and it's very important to do the validation, uh, how this data set, how all the data is get ingested, what's the our volume of the data, what's are the schemas created, or it's all are as expected or not. So first we preview this data set. You can go to the AEP dataset browse, and you can browse it through your dataset name, and then you will see this view which will tell you about the record count, the sample row. You can check from the preview data, and then you can see all the metadata data set metadata information. When we create a derived data set using CTAS, AEP automatically generate a schema. So we must review this schema, like what's the field name, what's the data type, and the structural alignment before activating this. So in next slide, we will see how it will become more powerful. So from driving the data set, validating the data set, and then now we will see how we can utilize this derived data set. So now uh, we move from the data set creation to something more powerful, like creating a custom attributes. So here, as we already talk about this, like the renewal priority, we have created these custom attributes by using the case statement to classify the different kind of uh, customer. And we stored this derived data in the custom attributes, which is called as renewal priority. This means it's now like it becomes the physical field, not a temporary logic in the SQL. So how we can validate this? We can validate, you can go to the, again, you can go to dataset, browse and browse with this table name. And you will see this in the preview dataset that this attribute is available for the use for the business needs, what like is, and then we have to check like is this renewal priority is correctly assigned. Like you can do the validation here if the expiration date or this SQL is working fine, or we are getting all this correct data here or not. Also you should validate here like the cancelled membership is not the part of this data set. So this is the very important step to do all the validation, because this will become our a final data set. Like we will use this data set for creating the audience, for doing the personalization. So the validation is a very key step for any derived data set or the creating the custom attributes. Yeah, we can go to the next step. Yeah. So now we have created our derived dataset and the custom attributes as renewal priority. The next step is activation. In this example, we create an audience directly from the derived dataset membership renewal target. If you see in this SQL queries screenshot in line 14, we are taking all this data from membership renewal target. Also, it's very important to define the primary identity and the identity namespace when you are creating the audience directly from uh, uh, when you are creating the audience through Data Distiller. So what is this primary identity? Like for in our use case, I use the customer ID as a primary identity, and you have to define the prime identity namespace. So basically, identity this namespace will help you to stitch this to make a profile data, and then you will see here like select customer ID, and this customer ID will be in this the primary identity. And this basically this with statement primary identity and identity namespace, this ensure the audience is properly linked to the unified profile. Uh, Basically what this approach give us, it give us a full control instead of rebuilding the filter in the UI. Like if we so because if you use the audience builder UI, that we can we have to do it again, or because in more complex use case it's not easy to do all the scenario to do it through the audience builder UI. So in those cases you can use the data distiller audience creation through the SQL query logic. Yeah, and what this audience will include as a attributes will this audience will have the customer ID, email ID, first name, last name, expiry date, and the renewal priority. This means the audience is activation ready with personalized attribute included. In the below screenshot, you will see like how this audience will look like. So as soon as you will run this query, you will get your audience name in the result section, and then you can search this audience in AEP audience browse section, and you can open and you can see all the metadata details of this audience, like audience name, the dataset used for this audience, the batch ID, the schema, and how much record is ingested in this audience, and then the status of this audience. So now this audience is now ready for create audience from audience by using the audience builder UI. So one important thing, like the data distiller audience can be used in the audience builder UI when you are creating the new audience by using the another audience. And this audience can be directly used in the as a journey and resource. And you can export this audience to the downstream system, and also you can personalize the message based on all this audience attribute. We are going to see all these things in the next slide. So can we go next slide? Yes, thank you. uh, Now that our batch audience is created, the final step is activation inside the journey. We use the data distiller audience as the journey entry source here in the journey canvas. If you see this screenshot, we use the data distiller audience as an entry source, and then I use the action email. In the email, we can do the personalization by using this audience uh, data distiller audience attributes. In the uh, left side, you will see in the profile attributes, you can search with the audience enrichment. Under the audience enrichment, you will see the DDA, that is the data distiller audience. And within data distiller audience, you will see your or XDM schema for your audience name. When you select this, you will see all your audience related attributes that is ready to use in this uh, message editor. So in the right side, in the editor, you will see like I use the first name from the profile attributes, and also I use the renewal priority from the data distiller audience attributes. And you can use this attribute for doing the dynamic content, for directly you can use it in the message editor also. Yep. So let's step back and look at the complete flow. So we will see what we have done so far. So we started with the source data set, profile data, and event data. This is raw operational data, not yet business ready. Then we use data distiller to create a derived data set. We joined profile and event data, applied the business rules, calculated the custom attributes, that is renewal priority, and the filtering the expiring membership. Before activating anything, we validated the data preview. We calculated the field, which was the custom, which was the renewal priority, and we have validated the auto-generated schema from the derived dataset. So this step ensure the quality and the activation readiness. And the next, we build a batch audience directly from the derived dataset. Finally, we activated it inside the Journey Optimizer as a read audience. So here, what we did, we leveraged the custom attributes. We use the expiry date. We use the renewal priority or the custom attributes that we have derived directly in the personalized editor in the journey canvas, and deliver the personalized renewal reminder automatically. Yeah, uh, that's it. Next slide. Yeah. Now I want to push here and ask an important architectural question. If we already created a derived data set, why do we need to enable it for profile? Isn't the data set already created? The answer is simple, because we want the custom attributes to become part of the unified customer profile. If it is not profile enabled, it stay only in the data lake. And if it stays in the data lake, it cannot power real-time profile use case. When we enable the derived dataset for profile, four powerful things happen. It becomes available for real-time segmentation. It can be used directly in journey personalization. It is accessible across all profile-based use case. It gets merged with other profile attributes inside the unified profile. So in the next slide, we will look how we can enable the profile dataset. Yeah. So now let's look at how we technically create a profile enabled derived dataset. First, we create the derived dataset table. Here you will see in this SQL query, create table is a key to create the table. And this is the table name, profile renewable target profile enabled. Then we define the primary identity as customer ID. This is important. Without a primary identity, the data cannot merge into the unified customer profile. We also assign the CRM identity namespace that ensure AEP knows how to stitch this dataset with the existing profile data. Next, we add our custom attributes renewal priority. Now we define it structurally, so it becomes part of the dataset schema. Notice here that the key configuration we used with label equal to profile. This is what makes the dataset profile enabled. With it, the data becomes part of unified profile. In the below screenshot, we insert the data using our business logic query. This performs the join, ingestion happens, and AEP merges the data into profiles. Here we are defining structure, identity, enriching logic, and profile integration, all in one controlled process. Next slide, Parvez. Yeah. Now that we have created and ingested the profile enabled dataset, the next step is validation. So validation is a very key steps in AEP while you are working in the derived dataset. You have to validate whenever you run the query. You have to check your business logic is giving the output as per your expectation. So we want to confirm that everything is properly integrated into real-time customer profile. First, we verify that the new dataset is marked as profile enabled or not. To check that, go to AEP dataset and then browse, enter the dataset name, and then check if it is profile enabled. Yeah, here this dataset is a profile enabled, and then next we should check the union schema. So next we go to the AEP again, profile section and union schema. Under the union schema tabs, you can explore the XDM individual profile, and within that we can see here that custom attributes has been added in this individual profile with my custom attributes, which is the enriched, which is the renewable priority. So this confirm that the attribute is now part of the unified profile model. From this point forward, renewable priority behaves like any other profile attributes. And now we are fully ready for the audience building and personalization. So in next slide, we will see how we can use this data for creating the audience. Yeah. So since this renewable priority is profile enabled, and it is available in the profile, we can directly use the audience builder UI to add to create the audience. So in this audience builder, we navigate to the custom attributes, and then we choose the renewable priority. We drag and drop here, and for example, we define here renewable priority equal to high, and we can combine these custom attributes with the other profile or event attributes to create the more complex audience. For example, here we just choose the simple, we are creating a simple audience, but you can also combine these custom attributes with the different audience, with the different profile attributes, with the different event attributes. And yeah, that's it. No joins, no date calculation here, no complex logic, all heavy logic, all the calculation, all the joining, everything was done already in the derived dataset. And here we are only using the our enriched attributes, that is the renewable priority. So the heavy logic was already done once in a data distiller, and we can reuse in like creating the audience. We can use it in the journey conditions. We can use for the email personalization. Also, we can use this attribute with the other profile attributes also in the journey conditions and the personalization. So in next slide, we will see how we can use this audience in journeys and personalization. So now everything is simple because the renewable priority is a part of the unified profile. And as we know, like if any attributes we can use if it is available in the profile attributes to do the personalization. Okay, I will first show you like how this journey canvas has look like. So in the read audience, I select the audience which I created in the previous slides, and here I added an email, and then we can see like how this message editor where we can use these attributes. You can search with our attributes name. For example, here we have the renewable priority, and you can directly use in the message editor. Also, you can combine it with the other or the different attributes from profile. It is already a part of the profile, so we can use in the across the channel like email, push, SMS, in-app, any channel that use the profile data. Yeah, we can go now next. Thank you. Yeah, let's quickly recap the full flow. We started with raw source data, that is the profile datasets and event datasets. Then we used Data Distiller to create a profile enabled derived dataset. We define primary identity, we use the CRM identity as a namespace, and we create the custom attributes as a renewable attributes and ingested the data. This is where the business logic becomes a structured reusable data. And next we validate everything. We confirm the data quality, the auto generated schema, and the custom attributes appear in the union schema. That step ensure that the attributes is truly part of the unified profile. And now the real power is that single enriched attribute can be directly used to create the audience, directly used in any journey, and the personalization across the channel, and also export stream destination. Yeah, we can go to the next slide.
Just to be, there is a question that someone not able to hear. Is it for only for one person or other persons also facing the same problem? I can hear, yeah, we can hear. So Arya, I think is something, yeah, Rajendra Kumar, I think is something issue maybe on your side. Okay, yeah, you can continue. Thank you. So going to the next slide. Yeah, we have 20 minutes left. So yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, thank you. Up to this point, we built the derived dataset manually, but in production, we don't want to run SQL every day like manually. We want the system to refresh audience automatically. That's where the scheduled queries come in. First, we run the query, the build or update dataset. Then we save it as a reuse. To save it, like you have to give the name of this query and then click on the save and close. We also choose between how uh, we can also choose between two execution strategy. This strategy is like insert or override. So in this example, you can see I use the insert into membership renewal target profile enable, and the insert is an incremental processing. Only new or changed data is added. We can use overwrite also, like insert overwrite into your table name. Overwrite will full refresh your dataset. The dataset is rebuilt from scratch. In most production scenario, incremental insert is preferred for performance. Like most of the time, like people prefer to use the insert strategy. The key benefit is this, like our derived data set stays fresh automatically when we use the insert. In the next slide, we will discuss like once the query is saved as a template, we simply like we can reopen it. You can go to the query and under the scheduled or under the template section, you can open that template and you can add the schedule. This moves us from manual execution to automated production logic. Next, we define how often the query should run. We can choose hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. For our renewal use case, daily execution makes sense because membership expire continuously. We also define the execution time. A very important point here is all scheduled run in UTC. So we must align with the business time zone requirement. We also enroll the query for quarantine feature. Important point for quarantine feature that halt a scheduled query after 10 consecutive failure. We can also enable it for alert like query start, success, failure, delay. This is critical in production environment. It ensures we know immediately if something breaks and we can act on those error and we can again fix the issue if there is any error. We can go to the next slide, Parvesh. Yeah, let's talk about something very practical. The query service UI for quick check, but it has limitation. For example, like export in the UI support up to 1000 row. That's often not enough when you are validating a large data set. When we connect via a Postgres SQL connector like DB Visualizer, we gain much more flexibility. We can preview and export 50,000 rows. We can sort, filter, and analyze the data interactively. In query service, you have to download the result, but in DB Visualizer, you can directly filter, you can directly make a sort, you can directly analyze your data, and we can also transform this result directly in the tool. So this make the data validation much more efficient. Another advantage of using the DB Visualizer is we edit and save this SQL file locally, because in the query service we don't want to save it every time. We don't want to create the template because we will create the template only once it's ready for production. But when you are writing the query, then it doesn't make a sense to save it through the query UI, but you can save it in the local by using the visualizer, and then you can work next time when you will start working. So in a real world implementation, this significantly speed up development. So think of it this way, query service UI is good for quick exploration. Postgres SQL connector tools like DB Visualizer are better for development, validation, and productivity. Here we give a link to how you can use the DB Visualizer. So you can follow this link and you can set your local DB Visualizer to connect with your AEP environment. Yeah, I think that's it from my side, Parvez. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Akash. Thank you for sharing all this information. So now let me just give you a quick information about the best practice. And this best practice for you, it comes from our practical experience. So as we see that there is a different capability of the data distiller, like creating a derived data set and enabling it for the profile. But be careful there, because do not replace audience builder with a derived data set, because if you there is some attribute that you need to be identified to qualify if you need to use a data distiller or not. So if you have like a, for example, in our use case, complex groupings, advanced SQL logics, and you want to use some derived custom attribute, which is sometime a challenge, it's not available on the profile attributes. So for those type of use case, it's good to use a data distiller. But if you have any simple use case based upon some profile attribute, always it's better to use the audience builder. The second one is the keep query simple. When you are in the enterprise environment where you have a big data set, when you run the query service, especially, the performance is really important. So always try to implement your query as simple as possible, and also try to use some some columns which you really want to be analyzed, and also use some limit. So it really give you good performance, because as we mentioned, there is only a 5 consecutive sessions is available. So if you have a big team and there's a multiple people is using it, so that could be the issue. The next is monitoring. So monitoring of the query execution time when it's scheduled. Also, if there is an issue batch size, because the data is growing quickly, so the query executions also take a lot time. So avoid all the unnecessary executions, all the unnecessary scans to the tables, and if possible always use your data retentions policy when applicable, because if you see this data is not useful for the future use cases, it always good to clean it, because it's not your data warehouse, it's a data lake. So these are the point is very important from the monitoring point of view. There are the other couple of another sections of the monitoring, but there we mainly talking about the data distiller and the another data analysis point of view. So the next one is understand also how the AEP is stored and how the queries we data. Like in the first slide, we explained like data in AEP is stored in the distributed file storage, like not a traditional SQL database. So when we run the query service is run by the Spark-based processing. So Adobe supported only SQL format is going to work. Not all the no standard SQL is not going, because I saw sometime questions about it that this query is not working. But if it's not supported by the how Adobe is suggesting by their documentations, yes, it's not going to work. There is a no way. Even you use a data distiller or use a query service, and yeah, so for the analysis, is always good to write the data into the derived dataset. Do not also publish or enable all derived dataset for the profile. That's very important point, because if you enable all derived dataset for the profile, all the new attribute which you are developing there because of the union schema, and it would be very difficult for you to manage then. So be careful there also. Then the timing and the duplications, yes, because as you know, sometimes the batch executions run always in the morning, so it depends upon the time zone. For example, for us in the UTC, it's run around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So if you take any use case, if you're running any campaign and which required to the fresh data, so always take into account. And also uh, duplications pattern, like if you see any like data which is coming duplicate, like we discussed validation, so that's also be an important part for you to keep in the mind. So these are the basically best practice which we see, and really helpful for us to take a right decisions for the right use case.